Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, I don't think.
See if I can. Oh, yes, you're gonna vote, and I get
Are we ready? Hi, welcome everybody to the candidate forum at Hilliard Library. My name is Leonard Fransford, and I'll be moderating and asking the candidates questions. And if you all got some paper, if you want to write any questions, they'll write them down and they'll pick them up and bring them to me. We'll kind of go through them along with those questions we have. I'll turn it over now to Jean, the president of the local chapter of League Women Voters.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming this evening. I always get so inspired and a little bit emotional when I see people turning out for these forums, because civic engagement is so important. And you showing up at this forum shows that you care about who is representing you, and you care to be informed when you vote, and you might even be voters. If you are just kind of tagging along with someone else and you're not a registered voter, we have voters registration forms right back there, and we'd be happy to get you registered. There is still time before the election. I would also like to thank Councilman Cathcart, the incumbent, for coming this evening, and Lindsay Shaw, who is also here this evening as a candidate. Leonard has been moderating a number of our forums this week, and I'm thanking him a lot. And we thanking him next week, I believe.
This is it.
This is for you, all right? And also Mike Bell, who is actually the treasurer of our local league as well. The league is 103 years old, as is the 19th Amendment. That was the amendment that gave women the right to vote. There were additional actions that needed to be taken so that everyone could vote. Your vote is precious. Use it. Okay. And Leonard, would you like to begin?
Okay, I'll give some ground rules for everybody. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for an introductory statement. I'll be asking questions of the candidate plus one submitted by the audience. You didn't see any of the questions beforehand. Candidates must answer the question. This is not the time to be cutting down your opponent. Try to answer the question so the audience can get a handle on what your views are on a particular issue. Obviously, you can't use cell phones or any kind of device during the meeting. Questions from the audience will be collected on cards, and I'll determine which ones. And you'll, at the end, you'll have 2 minutes for closing statement. Any questions? Everything okay? At the beginning, we flip the coin, and Lindsay will go first in her opening statement. And you have 3 minutes. And just let the candidate, just the audience know they have a timer in front of them, so they can get a handle on how much time they have to answer. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I feel so honored to see many people from the neighborhood here. My name is Lindsay Shaw. I am running for Spokane City Council in District 1 because I want to make sure that our Northeast voice is represented at our City Council table, and the decisions that are made much behind the scenes, really. I know the impact that a local voice can make on certain boards, and I think that my perspective is unique because I grew up born and raised, and raised a lot in this area and know the challenges. I've seen the challenges that it faces. I've dealt with my family's had TV, and so we've had to move around. So housing instability is something that's very real to me, and thinking about families who are experiencing that now in the housing crisis, and especially during the pandemic, it's very close to my heart. I also have had family members who have wrestled with addiction, and know that just re-traumatizing them through our court system is not always the solution on how to really make them feel like they're a part of our society and a better taxpayer. I feel like there are better approaches to healing our community. We need real solutions that prioritize the people in this district and make sure that resources are coming this direction. When I was on the boundary adjustment committee with the school district, I saw how our area is still being redlined. They designed the Fanny Yasahara Middle School to be the poorest school in the state. And they put it in the Logan neighborhood. So I see the North Spokane corridor coming through, where they tore down a viaduct in Seattle. They're putting one up here. I also know that our district has the most homeless shelter. And so Proposition 1 that illegalizes camping 1,000 feet from parks and schools, I feel like is very out of touch with our District 1 needs. Many of those campers are families who are just trying to make sure their kids get to school. I worked across the street at the Northeast Community Center for the last 3 years, a lot working with Amber Waldron, and just seeing her perspective, learning about our community, learning about the diversity that exists here, and how much we are the best district. You just have to figure out how to have that voice at that decision-making table. I'm honored to be here, and I would be honored to represent Northeast Spokane in the healthiest way possible for the next generations to come. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Campbell.
Yeah, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for the lead for hosting this really important debate. And a big thank you to everybody who's watching at home right now. Really important, pay real close attention. My name is Michael Cathcart, and it has been the honor of a lifetime to be a champion for all of Northeast Spokane these past 4 years. I currently serve as your council president pro tem, chair of the Public Safety Committee. I serve as the chair of the Northeast Public Development Authority, as well as I sit on the Broadlink PDA, which is a really important regional PDA focused on expanding broadband access across our community. And so I'm also a father and a husband. And, you know, one thing that really has been a concern to me is what impacts will our decisions today have on our next generation? What impacts will they have on kids like my apples? And that's something that I worry about pretty frequently. I really believe that we have just a number of opportunities in front of us. In fact, I think the opportunities ahead are so much greater than the challenges. And that's what really excites me. And that's why I want to run for my last term on the city council, because I think it's important that we continue down this path of, one, adopting neighborhood policing, which is really, really important. We need to continue to innovate on housing. We need to continue to create a more accessible city hall for our community, including language access, which is critically important. And we need to continue to do the things that we need to advocate for our Northeast community. And I think we have seen a lot of investment. We've seen a change in mindset at City Hall. And no longer are we seeing outcomes where District 1 gets the short end of the stick. In fact, we're now on the receiving end of a greater end of a lot of this stuff. In fact, right now we're in the midst of debating a potential park investment that would ensure a higher level of investment for Northeast over both Northwest and the South Hill. Now, politically, electorally, that might be a challenge. Obviously, the voters are gonna have to weigh in on that, but it's critically important that Northeast gets the resources it deserves. And that is something that I have been wholly focused on for the last 4 years. The last thing I just mentioned is I think it's really important. Our district has the lowest turnout in the city. And we need our voters to turn out. I don't care who you vote for, vote. Please, please, if you're watching at home, please vote. This is critically important. It matters not only because of who you elect to represent you, but it matters because of how they will represent you. How hard do they fight? Do they care about your vote? And this applies to citywide races as well. And so think it through, be active, ask questions, be thoughtful, read the voter's guide. Know what your concerns and your priorities are and match that with the candidate of your choice. So I just again encourage you to get out to vote.
Thank you, Councilman. This is kind of a general question. Public service generally has been a calling by some. What attracted you to the idea of running for office, Councilman, when you first ran? Not a particular issue, but just the idea of being a council person. You were subjected to criticism, people always watching you, but what attracted you to the idea of running for office? Councilman Cathcart, go first, then Shaw.
Yeah, well, for me, I'll be very blunt. I did not plan to run for office 4 years ago. In fact, I didn't file until 4 o'clock on the last day of filing week. And the reason was I didn't see another candidate that I could get excited and passionate about supporting. And so I decided at that point in time that I needed to sign up and I needed to step up and do the things that I felt was necessary. And that's what I did. And that's what I continue to do 4 years later. The promises I made then are the promises that I continue to keep today, across the board, every issue. And so for me, it really is about delivering the service to our community. I get folks who will ask me, obviously things get very tense at City Hall. And frankly, City Hall is not the best working environment. There's a lot of issues there. But people ask me, why would you want to go back to that? And the reason, again, is because there is so much opportunity in front of us. And I want to leave a Spokane for my son that I'm proud of, that he's proud of, and frankly, that makes our community a safe, welcoming, and affordable place to live.
Thank you. Michelle?
Thank you for that question. Sometimes I ask myself that often. We got involved because I saw that somebody else wasn't doing it. That's how I started my cleanups. That's how I got involved with the neighborhood council. That's actually how I became the council chair. And when I see that our council people are saying that low income apartments are not something that developers are interested in building, I don't believe in my heart that that's right. When I see our council people voting against renters' rights, even just the simplest right to know whether or not mold or meth have been in your apartment before you, I don't feel that that's right. We have to protect our community. I think that that's in human nature is really, we would like connection. And I think that we do that through building a safe community, through supporting what our needs are. And like I said, with that proposition to make it illegal to be a camper, it just feels like it's totally against what District 1 is needing or facing, or what's the solution for us. I know that we don't want them in our parks. Mission Park is closest park to my home, and it's been an interesting way to learn how to deal with it. But we have our Logan block parties there, and it's the most beautiful thing to see people who are homeless with neighbors and with college students who their parents have probably made more money than we'll ever see in that neighborhood. But if there's a possible way to work together as a community.
Thank you. Next question comes from the audience. We've had this question in all our forums. Do you support water fluoridation? And you go first, Michelle. You go last, and then Councilman Brown.
Growing up here, I always have appreciated our water. I remember when my mom said they're gonna start selling bottled water. I was like, why don't they do that? We have the best water here, but I guess it was always just a resource that I kind of took for granted maybe, or never thought that other places didn't have that water access. So I think that putting chemicals or into our water is not a solution. I know that through Apple Health, you can get fluoridation pills for your children. I know that if there are side effects for people who have cancer or are on certain medications, that it can be really life-threatening. So I do not support that.
Councilman Jacko?
Yeah, no, I do not. And I've been very outspoken since this idea was brought up 3 years ago in the midst of a pandemic on why we should not pursue this. The council did decide to move forward with a study, and we do have the results of that study. And the study shows that it would require $11 million in upfront capital and an ongoing operating cost of between 1.2 and 1.6 million dollars. And it's the challenged individuals in our community that will have to be footing the bill to pay for that because it will almost certainly get included into water rates. And that's not something that's acceptable to me, and that's not something that our folks can afford. I think there are far better ways that we could encourage good oral health. In fact, there are some really, really simple, far more cost-effective ways that we can do it, and ways that would not create an inequitable situation for folks who do not want or cannot have fluoridated water. And so I think that would be the much better way to go. Acora, which has been a special interest group that has funded some of these studies, I believe that they can put some of their dollars towards outreach to our schools. We can partner with them in that, but that to me is the far better way for us to address the oral health problems.
Thank you, Councilman. What is your opinion about Measure 1 that calls for 0.2% sales tax for criminal justice, including a new jail? Councilman, you went last, you go first now.
Yeah, well, first thing I would say is if you've not yet taken a tour of the jail, I would definitely encourage you to do that before you make up your mind on measure one. Call Sheriff Knowles, call Mike Sparber, the director of the jail, and set up a tour, because that will be the most eye-opening thing that you can do. You will see the deplorable conditions of that facility. The county has had to wait years and years to put forward a measure. And unfortunately, now the cost is higher and the status of the jail is far worse. But secondarily, this is probably going to be the one and only opportunity we have at addressing the revenue problem for improving the criminal justice system in the city of Spokane. In fact, this is probably the only option I think we have for funding some of the additional things that we need, such as additional prosecutors, defenders, more law enforcement tools, a night court. I believe we need a full-time municipal night court, and I would love to partner with district court on that to make this a far more expansive opportunity. But that would help to expedite folks who come into the jail system after hours, so they're not sitting there unnecessarily. So we need to speed up every piece of that criminal justice system, but there is no revenue to do it. In fact, we're debating over, I kid you not, thousands of dollars over some really good ideas, such as first appearance at track for folks that need to do that virtually. But we're squabbling over thousands of dollars because of our budget dilemma. So if you want to see investments in criminal justice, measure.
Communication with the public.
Can I answer?
There's.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I already had my.
No, that's okay.
Go right ahead.
I am against that, measure one. I believe that, our jail is, quite a disaster, but I don't believe that this is the measure to fix it. It is actually a $1.7 billion blank check to our county. There is very little planning around it. They don't even know where they're going to put this new jail. They would say they'd like to build two. I know that Geiger is in existence, but it's understaffed. So I'm not sure why that's not an option for us if we need additional space. And I've also been told that we could have more people in our current jail if it were better staffed as well. So I know it's not ideal, but those are options. I know that we need to invest in data-driven solutions, like low barrier substance abuse and behavioral health systems. But I think we could do that if we were to fix our tax code. Washington State is the most upside down tax code in the nation. So we are the lower income and middle income are actually paying more taxes than a lot of the multi-million-dollar developers and the millionaires, and there are a lot in Seattle area and in Washington. So I think that there are more creative ways that don't have to come out of our pockets to fill in the gaps. And I don't believe that measure one is for us.
Thank you. Next question. Communication with the public is always a challenge for elected officials. How do you plan to engage with and be accessible to your constituents throughout your term? Go first.
Well, I think I got to get the job, and I love going to neighborhood council meetings. I know that they have changed over the pandemic, but I would love to figure out ways that we could grow our councils somehow, some way. Even, I know that 3 neighborhoods meet on this night and they actually cancel their meeting, so they could come to this if they wanted to. But I think that working together, especially in our district, on that is a really important way to communicate. I also want to have an open door policy, maybe have coffee with constituents, or feel free to email me even currently, anytime with ideas or concerns. I love to think about hopes and dreams for our area because there are so many concerns, but I think it's okay to hope and dream as well. The Illinois pathway was a dream at a neighborhood council meeting about 8 years ago, and it's come to fruition. So I believe that we can do anything when we work together. So always feel like you can call me. I think if you Google my name, you would find my phone number, and it's been the same for 20 years. So that will remain the same.
Councilman Cathcart?
Yeah, I will continue to do what I'm doing. I pride myself on being as accessible as possible. I have a great assistant who helps with a lot of outreach as well. But I try to be at events. I try to go to our neighborhood council meetings. I'm up late talking to constituents, nights, weekends. It's a never ending job. This really truly is a full-time, 24-hour type role, where people expect you to respond and be responsive. In fact, just last night, probably 11 o'clock, getting texts about a nuisance home and folks wanting some help because they couldn't get a response from Crime Check. That's the job. I mean, trying to help folks who need it desperately. And so I'm going to continue doing those things, and I'm going to continue knocking on doors and talking to voters where they're at, because that's the other part that's really important. If you're not out talking to voters directly, you're not getting the insights you need to represent them well. And that's a really important point. So I'm going to continue doing all of those things, communicating with our different constituent groups, and just being accessible and available.
Thank you. Next question. We have several questions on safety and police funding. This one says, I do not feel safe in my community. How do you plan to improve safety for District 1 as a whole? And do you know the extent of crime plaguing our district? And what are your thoughts on more money for the police department?
Yeah.
Michelle, I think Michelle is next, and then you don't.
Well, we definitely miss our neighborhood resource officers. When I first got involved with neighborhoods, my neighborhood resource officer was the most amazing woman I had ever met. And she really helped me. And the next one was amazing also. But now that they're missing, they have one officer for the whole district, and that poor guy. How can he take care of everything? If we had those neighborhood resource officers, then my home maybe wouldn't be having a nuisance phone call at 11 o'clock, maybe that we share the load there. I also know that a lot of our residents don't feel safe to cross the streets because of speeding cars. So getting our speed patrol back out there, traffic calming, I think we're missing opportunities for revenue, and we aren't as safe with speeding cars in our area. It seems like a silly thing to talk about this. And I think that we've given the police money after money anytime they ask. And I think that it's really important to have transparency and accountability just to see where they're at. If we aren't playing whack-a-mole with our homeless and we're actually investing in resources to help them, we engage with our society, with our economy. I think that we won't have to keep putting money into the police.
Thank you.
Yeah, our places are woefully understaffed. Right now, we have about 16 vacancies plus another 40 or so officers on some form of mitigated light duty or leave or something. And so we have to substantially increase the number of officers to even approach the national average, per capita average. We're not even close. Tacoma far outnumbers us, if you want to use an in-state example. So we've got to invest in officers. But we also need to invest in other areas too. I mean, tools for those officers. We need to invest in cars for those officers. We are highly deficient right now in vehicles. In fact, just for some of our big events, we've had to borrow vehicles from other jurisdictions just so we would have enough vehicles to deal with those big events. And there's been a lot of reasons for those delays, obviously supply chain and I would say some erroneous orders on our part as a city. But if we can improve that, we can improve our ability to recruit. That is the number one recruiting tool, is a take-home vehicle program. And that's something that council as a whole has been looking at very closely for quite a while right now, because we do need to bolster those numbers. I was able to pass a hire ahead plan that allows our officers to hire an additional 10 in advance. And again, because of the challenges with recruiting and the challenges with retaining, it is hard to fill those positions. So we also need to look at how we recruit and make a bigger emphasis there. But again, the entire criminal justice system from beginning to end needs to be reformed, because right now it is broken.
Thank you. This is an obvious question, you probably hear a lot. Spokane has more individuals experiencing homelessness than ever before. If you had a magic wand and you can wave it, how would you approach addressing this issue? If you can make one simple solution. Oh, Councilman Campbell.
Yeah, I'd make sure they're all healthy and prosperous. I mean, I think if I could wave a magic wand, that would certainly be the thing I would do. I mean, I believe that the best thing we can do as a community is to help these folks get back on their feet. And that's a two-way street. It requires some accountability on both ends. And it requires a system that actually works. And right now our system again, does not work. Which is why I support moving towards a regional homelessness system that is similarly based on Houston, where I had the opportunity to attend to visit about a year ago and see exactly what they're doing down there. And now obviously we're going to put our Spokane spin on the regional homelessness effort, but Houston has done an amazing job with getting folks off the street, getting them housed, providing services, and doing it in a cost-effective way. Now, obviously, Texas, a little bit different state than Washington. They're able to do things a little bit more affordably down there. But when we were spending $52,000 per person on track, that is just wholly unacceptable. In fact, that's higher than the median household income of the neighborhood that track sits in. It's just wrong. And that's why I have been opposed to funding track every step of the way, because it is not cost effective, nor is it providing the service that is exiting people from homelessness, which should be our number one priority.
Thank you. Sean?
If I had a magic wand, I might try to slow things down for families, especially in the first years of the 0 to 5. I would love to find family supports like Circle Security and get them in the hands of the masses. I think that if we can heal just those years and build connection for the family, it builds a stronger foundation. Also, kindergarten readiness is at, I think, an all-time low. If it's not, it's scarily low. And I think that if we can just invest in families and in kindergarten readiness, that we will see how much our community will change moving forward. I know it takes some time, but everything does take time. But I think we human beings are a worthy investment. And so if I had a magic wand, I would definitely invest in family supports and 0 to 5 childcare, reduced childcare costs and kindergarten readiness. I think that's the solution, building connection.
Thank you. Like homelessness, crime is a concern for residents, and this came from several people in the audience. What specific measures do you favor to address that issue? Michelle?
Well, I think that we all can agree that we want to feel safe where we are. And I think that crime is something that people don't decide one day, I want to be a criminal. I think that you really pushed into a corner and you don't feel like your community is there to support you. I think that we can invest in substance abuse and mental health and community, and people, I want to believe in my heart that crime will reduce if we make sure that they have affordable housing, if they have children, that they can have childcare that they can afford without getting another job. I think that we can put supports in place in our community that make our community feel like they're cared for and engaged, and crime will naturally reduce. I want to believe in everyone who I know that it's hard. I know addiction's tough, but I just believe that if we support them, if they feel like someone cares, if there's a safety net somehow to catch them. I know a lot of people lose families or just have a little more unfortunateness, right? That more unfortunates. How do we build a community that has a bit of a safety net? How do we partner with other nonprofits that maybe can do that? I think that when people feel left behind, sometimes they do what they have to do to live. So, yeah.
Thank you. Councilman Campbell?
Yeah, I don't think you can have a cross your fingers and hope approach. I think you have to take a realistic approach. And that's what I have tried to prioritize, and that's giving tools back to our officers so that they can actually do the things that keeps our community safe. Whether that's stopping open fentanyl use on our streets, putting my family at risk, your family at risk, whether that is folks who are acting in a pretty nefarious way in our parks, vandalizing, gang banging, things of that nature late at night, not acceptable in our neighborhoods. We have to stop these types of activities from making our neighborhoods less safe. You should not have to move to feel safe. And so one of the things that I think we need to do, in my opinion, that would be the greatest thing we could do to reduce crime, and I've been a big advocate for it. Unfortunately, inability to fund more officers is an obstacle, but that is neighborhood policing. Neighborhood policing fundamentally would transform, I believe, our community and in a significant way. It would rebuild relationships in the community between the police and our constituents. It would deter crime. It would provide for quicker response to crime, and it would enable us to investigate crime in a more timely manner. And so I continue to push on this thread because I think it would be one of the most transformative things we could do. But we also have to continue investing in other areas of traffic calming and traffic patrols, DV units, things of that nature. But I think that we could get our officers in the neighborhoods
So, I'm
be a
sorry.
big improvement.
We've had a couple questions. Nearly half of this district's residents are renters. What would you do to support families struggling with rent? And that could be a citywide issue too. Yeah, Councilman Campbell.
Yeah, obviously, this is a huge issue, and we've taken some pretty ginormous steps on council to try and address it. Obviously, we face a pretty drastic supply issue right now where we do not have enough supply for the demand. And that has forced prices to skyrocket the last few years. And so what we've done is try to be innovative and bring forward some really bold ideas to address our housing crisis, from the Building Opportunities and Choices for All Act, which increases the allowable units in our neighborhoods, but also emphasizing home ownership opportunities, essentially legalizing the Kendall Yards home ownership model. And that is something that I think is really important, so that more folks have opportunities to obtain a home that they can afford. We've also changed our ADU policies to make those more palatable for folks to try to build in their backyard. We've reduced the fees to get those done. And we've also changed our multifamily tax exemption in a way that really incentivizes housing development, and does it in a way that flips the script. So we're emphasizing more affordable units in some of our richer areas, and trying to move more market rate into some of our lower income areas, which is really important, provide balance and really help to kind of help all boats rise with the tide. So we've done a number of things to really address the housing affordability, including some common sense landlord tenant laws as well. So I'm really proud of the work we've done. We've got to continue down that thread to help get those prices down. But we've got great opportunities ahead.
Sorry, Ms. Shaw.
Yes, I think protecting renters' rights is essential to, especially helping the homeless situation. I think a lot of people are, on fixed income and their rent keeps going up and they're in a pickle, and it's really devastating to try to help them or try to find solutions, because where are the solutions? A family near Chief Gary Park, they said their rent went up $600. How much time do they have to come up with that money on a monthly basis? So could we limit, I would propose limiting raising rent to up to just 2 times a year. I think that 6 months to adjust to that kind of raise in rent could potentially allow you to find another job or a different apartment. I also think that there are property management companies that are predatory, and they collect applications because each application comes with a fee. And so they're trying to make money off of the fact that people are looking for housing. Maybe we could create a solution like I don't know, a universal application process. So it's a one-time fee. We could also limit the security deposit or your pet deposit to being 1 month's rent and not more than that. There's so many ways, and I think it's crucial to know what's been going on in your apartment before you get there. So knowing about mold, knowing about previous meth use in your apartment
Sorry, time is up.
for safety.
This was to Councilman Campcart, but I think being both of you, if you're not reelected, Councilman, or if you are elected, will you be committed to staying involved in a voluntary way in the community? Ms. Shaw and then Councilman Campcart.
Well, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I've been a squeaky wheel for this area for over a decade, I think, and I will continue to do so. Whether it's at the community center or just in one of these rooms, working with District 1 leadership, we have opportunities. People have been working on these opportunities for decades. And there is a small little tiny nonprofit here that I would love to see nourished and growing, elected or not. how can we make sure that people know that it's safe? That they feel safe around their parks, that if they want to start a friends group at their park, that they have a roadmap to get there. I've worked with the Parks Department to work on that. How do we create artwork over old buildings that are across from our schoolyards? And just always making sure that if we have a broken window at our local school in our kindergarten class, it doesn't take 3 years to get fixed, because that wouldn't happen in any other part of town. I am fired up. I think that's why I'm running. That is why I'm running, because I just see injustices and I'm ready for them to. I will always fight for this district.
Thank you. Councilman Cathcart?
Yeah, I can't not continue to fight because this is where I live. This is where my wife and son live. And frankly, I'm pretty concerned at the direction the city is heading, both from a safety standpoint as well as an affordability standpoint. And I have fought like hell for 4 years to try and turn things around and improve things. Sometimes being outvoted, sometimes being in the majority. But it's been a challenge. And so we've got, I believe, just a little bit of time to really try to get things on the right track. We've got some dips coming in our economy. We've got some future challenges, obviously, with the budget that are going to loom. And so we have got to start right now with correcting the ship. And if we don't, I really fear for what will happen in the coming years.
Thank you, sir. In recent months, there seems to be conflict between the council and the mayor's office. How would you work to foster a collaborative relationship or environment? Councilman Cathcart?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's been issues between the mayor's office and the council office forever. I mean, it's natural, but you're right. It has gotten a lot more heated, especially as of late. But I'll tell you, I mean, I think there's supposed to be a natural line there because you have two different branches of government with two different roles. Sometimes they are competing and sometimes they're aligned. I do think that there is a hell of a lot more we can do to work with the administration as council. But I also think there's a hell of a lot more the administration can do to work with council. I've been frustrated on both ends. And the constant needling of the mayor by some council members, I think is hardly helpful. It really makes the relationship harder. And the lack of the mayor coming over to our side of the 7th floor and talking and collaborating is also a challenge. So there's a lot more that we can do, but one big idea I have that I'm really interested in pursuing, and of course you have to have administrative buy-in to do this, is actually reforming how both of our staffs work. And so rather than having a council staff siloed here, a mayor staff siloed here, why don't we come together and create an actual nonpartisan staff, just like the Washington State Legislature has for all of their legislative work. And I think that would create a far more trusting situation, regardless of who's leading council, who's leading the mayor. And the public would then be able, I believe, to see far more collaboration between the two, even when there is some competing interests.
Thank you.
Well, working in neighborhoods, not everyone is on the same page or believes the same things, and just being able to find common ground, I think is a first place to start. I have not been a council person, so I'm not sure. It does look like it's a very difficult place to be. If you're not knowing what's going on in the mayor's office and they're only getting piecemeal budget items, I think that would be very frustrating. I think sharing staff does sound like a great way to go, but I also think that you could maybe leave the 7th floor and kind of mingle throughout and maybe see what's going on with other department heads and just trying to build connection throughout the building and figuring out, maybe do some investigative work. Like I said, I have the gift of gab and I love to make friends. So I would hope to at least be on talking terms with most people if I could in the building and see how we can come together.
Thank you. One issue that comes up every once in a while to fund infrastructure is increasing or adding impact fees. Do you support any kind of impact fees for parks, roads, any other kind of issues that may come up in the community? Michelle?
I do not support taxing our low income and middle income families any more than where they're at. I think that we have a very high stress level and cost of living is high. If we could balance our tax code, we would probably not have to worry about the low and middle income paying for as much as what we're asked to pay for currently. Yeah, yeah,
Councilman Campbell?
Yeah, certainly raising fees, I think, is a big concern. It obviously is gonna make housing less affordable. We did, and I supported it, vote to increase impact fees on the Lake Powell Valley. Specifically so that we could end that moratorium and continue to address the housing crisis in that area. And frankly, it's the only way that we're gonna actually produce the revenue needed for the investment that they need up in Lake Powell. So I did support it. It did not increase the fee in Northeast, which was another consideration of mine. I know there's some plans to possibly bring that back and change it. I'll have to look pretty close to see how does that affect my district when they do that. But yes, I did support it, and there was some pretty heavy lobbying from the development community against it, but I still felt that it was important that we end that moratorium and enable that to move forward.
Thank you. How do you specifically plan to foster economic growth and job creation in the city? Specifically, that'd be Councilman Campbell?
Can you repeat that?
Sure. How do you specifically plan to continue to foster economic growth and job creation in the city?
Yeah, well, I'm grateful. I get to serve right now as the chair of the Northeast Public Development Authority, and that's an area from kind of Rich on the south where the golf course is. It goes up into the county and then kind of circles back into the Dogleg lefts into the city. And this is an area where we have a huge opportunity to recruit investment, to get more jobs, living wage jobs, especially manufacturing jobs. And so we're looking at a number of things right now to try and recruit those. But one in particular is, we've got a big need for childcare. And I supported a $3.5 million investment out of our ARPA funds. In fact, originally it was 3 million. I upped it to 3.5 because that was the ask to start a pilot on childcare. And we're starting to get some of those results back now. And so we'll look pretty close at how that went. But we need childcare supports in Northeast Spokane. That's a huge obstacle to getting folks back to work and getting them working in good paying jobs. And so looking at some opportunities to use some state funding as part of a development project that we have in the PDA to perhaps include some space for childcare services. And then we're also exploring some ideas around trying to create some incentives to encourage our manufacturers in particular, but job creators, an incentive for them to put forward some sort of a childcare program. So that's a big one. I think that would be very beneficial to the folks in Northeast who are really struggling. But we're also doing a sub-area plan that I think is going to have some remarkable improvements for that Northeast area.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Shaw?
I think it's important to focus on economic diversity in District 1, and that includes infill. So our development that's coming our way shouldn't be happening out in Lake Powell. It should be happening in the Logan neighborhood where we already have the firefighters, where we have the bus lines, where we have all of the infrastructure to support that housing. When we offer tax breaks for developers, we need to hold them accountable to offering low and middle income units. I think that that's very essential to bettering our economy. We also, I think that there's opportunity for a citywide childcare, affordable childcare, or low-cost childcare, or no-cost childcare. My boys are 18 months apart, and I was a stay-at-home mom for 7 years. And when I learned about Working Connections childcare, it allowed me to go back to work and learn more about our community. I think that that program could be applied to apprenticeship programs. That program could be applied to maybe students. There's programs available, and there are partners willing to work with us. And I think that even Priority Spokane named childcare as the #1 way that we can help our local economy. So I know that affordable housing, free childcare or reduced price childcare, and will support our local businesses and allow more people to be happy.
Next question, how do you envision the future of the city in the next 10 years? And what specific steps will you do to help meet that vision for the next 10 years? Ms. Shaw, and then Councilman Campbell.
I do stay up late dreaming about how our city could look. And I think the Illinois Pact is just one of the visions that I have, just thinking about artwork where there once was graffiti or just a rusty building. thinking about how do we engage local artists to cover up that graffiti, so it's not just gray paint over a blank slate? How do we make sure that this North Spokane freight corridor that's coming through doesn't necessarily ruin what we have as a community, and how do we make it bolster where we have, how do we make it better for us? So I think about downtown, I think about our skywalks, I think about local businesses and incubator spaces. I think about public transit and how to get more people riding our transit system. How do we make sure that our bus stops in Northeast look like bus stops everywhere else in town, with a shelter, with a bench, with a garbage can, with a map. I just think about making our city more user friendly, and that means a lot of investment coming to Northeast Spokane. And FPDA, I think, is a great way to get some of that investment to come over here.
Thank you, Councilman Cathcart.
Could you repeat the question?
How do you envision the future of our city in the next 10 years? And what specifically steps would you take to meet that vision?
Yeah,
that you
well,
have?
I mean, I think there's a number of things that we all want and desire. I mean, certainly for me, it would be that we are a safe and affordable community. Bar none, full stop. There's no exceptions to that. And that would be an ideal goal. Obviously, that's a utopian idea, probably not going to achieve, but we can continue to strive towards that. And that again means common sense changes to some of our laws regarding crime, common sense changes to how we do housing in this community, some common sense changes to the processes and procedures internally at City Hall that adds, delays and costs and things like that to our local employers and builders. There's a number of things we can do, but also to have jobs that are well-paying, living wage jobs that apply to people of all different backgrounds, whether you're trained and have some specific talent, or whether you're somebody who needs to learn on the job. I mean, we need to have options for everybody that meets our needs in our community. And obviously with the prices skyrocketing in our community, we need more higher paying living wage jobs. Despite minimum wage going up to 16 and some change, that's not going to do much for folks. So we need to see the much bigger jobs, the large manufacturers, things like that coming in. We can also do far better with our streets. I think we can look at how we provide the mixes for our road asphalt and things like that to help prevent more potholes from occurring as frequently as they
Yeah,
do.
Mayor, thank you very much. Both of you have mentioned the budget deficit that the city is facing. Do you have any, we'll start with you, Councilman, any specific thoughts you have on how to not have a deficit?
Yeah, if only they had listened a couple of years ago. I've been very outspoken on our budget deficit for quite a while, and I've been calling for cuts. I've been calling for freezes. I've been calling for a number of serious changes to get it under control. This risks our priorities. It risks our safety. It risks a whole lot of things if we cannot get our budget solved. And one of the biggest issues we faced was 2 years ago, we passed a budget that did not put aside the necessary reserves for the increases in the cost of our employees. And I voted against that budget. And the reason was it was not a sustainable budget, and we continue to unsustainably budget. And so to me, that is one of the most critical things. I put forward 2 reforms, both unanimously passed. One was vetoed. We had to override that veto, but it was critical that we do it. One creates a requirement that we start to rebuild our reserves, and that starts this fall. And the other changes the process for how we consider some of our budgeting. So now instead of just this kind of dilly-dally, okay, we'll do an SBO here and there, we have quarterly SBOs and a mid-year review that provides an opportunity for us to get it right. We can drill down into the details and start to fine tune. This is the first year that's been in place. I look forward to it working a heck of a lot better in the future years. And it also requires that we look outward and make sure that what we're doing today balances even when we measure those projections in the future. That is critical, and that's something our state has been doing for a long time.
Sean.
Obviously, it's complicated, but I think our city budget is a value statement. So when we cut our firefighters, I feel that that's unjust and a bad opportunity for us. I think the efficiencies that my opponent talked about hasn't worked. Obviously, we're in a $20 million deficit and maybe even more if you count track shelter. I think that we've missed opportunities for state funding, we've missed opportunities for federal funding, and I think that there is money available. We just have to be creative in looking for it and being open to learning. I think that when we think we know everything, we're missing out on opportunities. I think that we've postponed a lot of things, kicking the can down the road. We see that our refuse bill will increase 10%, and I think there are more increases coming along. And I think that that could have been maybe spread out a little bit because it's all gonna fall on us. We just need to find funds and be creative. So that's.
Okay, thank you. This will be the last question before we get to the end. What role do you see for the city to increase the arts and culture in our community? No, Michelle, I'm sorry, you go next.
I mentioned it earlier, but I would love to see, I know that the mayor has the cleanup programs where they go and paint the gray over the graffiti. Why can't we get our youth involved with designing murals, get local talent involved and maybe get a little bit of money in their pocket? Maybe that could be through a grant. How do we partner with the programs that already are existing? And then it makes our city just a little bit more cheerful, a little bit more interesting. We are a college town. We have many universities here. So I think that there's opportunity to, instead of paint over things with gray, really to celebrate all of the concrete that we have in a more artistic way. So that's one way. I also think that incubator spaces, downtown, a lot of the skywalks are kind of empty. I would love to see some incubator spaces. Why not? Can we work with the people that own those buildings and provide some space for people to show their art, showcase what their talents are or what their businesses are, and just really try to partner with Terrain and those Spokane Arts and to create a thriving artistic city.
Thank you, Councilman Cathcart.
Yeah, well, I've been talking with the Department of Neighborhood Services about the possibility of citing a couple of different graffiti walls. And so the idea would be that we'd either just put up a wall, or my preference would be that we identify a business or more that would be open to this. And the idea being that you would essentially sanction that for graffiti. And so it helps to encourage artists to help to put their imprint on that, but also to get, a bit more noticed and notoriety and have something to do, frankly, because it's a place where they are allowed to do those sorts of things. I think that's one thing, but I think the other is, it's also just making sure that the areas that we have that are already painted, that those are well maintained, that those are not getting graffiti, that those are not getting dismantled. We have seen whether it's the crosswalks up on Perry or it's some of the art installations at Riverfront Park. We have seen a number of things that have been destroyed, graffitied, and harmed. And so we've got to, I think, amplify how we secure those, how we get the message out about just the civic responsibility to protect those. And I think we also just need to do better with how quickly we respond to clean up when there's, whether it's graffiti or somebody has harmed some sort of artistic piece.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, we'll now go to the 2 minutes for closing statement. Since Michelle, start with the opening statement. Catherine, you want to have the closing statement?
Sure.
We have 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you all so very much for being here this evening. It really is my honor to do this job and to do this work and to fight on your behalf. I spent the last 4 years really fighting to make our security safe and affordable, and that has been a big priority. I have fought hard to make sure that we have investments in Northeast Spokane. The Illinois street improvements is one that's been brought up a couple of times tonight, and I was very grateful to work with Councilmember Burke to help make that possible. I've worked with Councilmember Stratton on a number of things, from some scraps issues to good neighbor agreements to landlord-tenant reforms. I've had the opportunity, in fact, we'll be making a statement soon with Council President Kinnear on a big issue coming up soon. So there's a number of things that I've been able to work across the aisle to help deliver for our community. And that has been a big emphasis of mine. This isn't about creating a government that fits some mold. This is about making government work and work well for our constituents. And unfortunately, government doesn't always do that, and it certainly isn't easy. I'm really proud to serve as the council president pro tem, particularly in my first term, to be appointed to that role is a pretty big honor, and I accepted that responsibility with a lot of understanding of what that comes with. I have never missed a vote in the city council, and I've looked back and I cannot find another council member who has done the same thing. I always show up. I make sure that our voice is heard loud and clear. Because after all, Northeast Spokane has been under-resourced and under-supported for an awfully long time. And I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to try and make that change. I think we flipped the script. I can see a lot more voices in City Hall. We need more, by the way, but we've a lot more voices in City Hall who are advocating actively for Northeast, from staff to electeds, and that just warms my heart. And so again, please visit votecathcart.com if you want to check out my website. My phone number, my personal number is there, as well as my email. Ask any questions, happy to get back.
Thank you, Councilman Shaw. 3 minutes, for the closing statement.
Well, thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this on, and happy 106th year anniversary. It is an honor to be here to be a candidate for city council in District 1. Like I said before, I am a fierce advocate for this area through artwork, through pathways, through safe crossings across streets. I will be your champion when it comes to renters protections that I think are going to protect our people from becoming, more people from becoming homeless. I will fight for investments in our parks, and our parks are beautiful. They're a resource. We can't make it illegal to already, like, when we make laws about making things illegal that are already illegal, it's a waste of our time and tax dollars. How can we come up with creative solutions? I'm interested in approaching our lawmaking differently and supporting data-driven solutions to substance abuse and to homelessness. And I believe that a lot of how we are represented on city council currently is not really for us. I will be beholden to our residents in Northeast for what you are asking for, and that means a more supportive city council in a way that yes, supports police, but how about neighborhood resource officers through traffic calming officers, making sure that our traffic calming dollars aren't looked at like a slush fund to fill in budget gaps. I'm going to be a fierce advocate for Northeast, and I would love your vote come November 7th. Please check out electlindshaw.com.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yes.
You want to doesn't want to make a closing statement.
Running for public office is a tremendous undertaking, whether you win or lose, and then it doesn't get any easier. So we need to recognize the effort that these people are both putting forward tonight and coming before us and answering questions. And I'm so impressed with the number of questions that came out of the audience. I think you might have beat the average so far. Very impressive. You have a lot to manage over here on the desk. The League is a nonpartisan organization, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government, always working on vital issues of concern to members of the public. Our main goal is to make democracy work and empower voters. The State League sponsors statewide candidate forums, and our 20 local state leagues, Spokane Area League is one of those, made up of 2,400 members. Locally, we're 158 now, I think, 158. And we produce these local election forums. There are other organizations in this area who are also doing forums. Please keep your eyes open, stay involved with all of the forums that affect your voting decisions. You can learn more about the League. We are called the League of Women Voters for Gentlemen. Men also can join. We just haven't changed our name. Our website is lwvsa.org and the national site is lwv.org. Thank you for coming this evening, and a total round of applause for these people.